The Hobson family were going camping. It was Bella's first camping trip, and though she was excited, she was nervous too. "What if the tent falls over and squashes us?" she asked Joe. "It's too light to squash us," said Joe. "Well, what if the wind blows it away?" "The wind isn't strong enough." "Well, what if a wolf comes into the tent and eats us?" This made Joe laugh. Bella had read too many fairy stories with big bad wolves in them. "There aren't any wolves in Yorkshire," he said. "There aren't any wolves in the whole of Britain. Except in zoos, of course." "Well, what if one escaped from a zoo?" asked Bella. Joe said that zoos were far too careful to let their animals escape, and Bella soon forgot about wolves as they started planning for the camping trip. "Let's get ready, kids," said Dad on Saturday morning. "As soon as we're packed up, then we're off." They all helped load up the car. First, they put in the tent. It was a big one for the whole family. Then the sleeping bags and blankets. It's cold at night when you're sleeping in a tent. Then they packed the cooking equipment and lots of food to cook. When everything was packed, the car was full to bursting. The Hobson family just managed to squeeze in. Soon, they were leaving the city behind them. "Look at the hills," said Dad. "Look at the heather on the moors." They drove up a winding road with no houses until they reached the turning for the campsite. It belonged to a farm and was in a big field. There were views out over the moors and lots of space for people to pitch their tent. "Right," said Dad. "First things first, let's get the tent up. Here's a good spot, next to this hedge." Once the tent was up, it was time to eat. Then Joe and Bella went to explore. There were trees to climb and a stream for paddling. Bella started collecting tadpoles in a jar with another girl, and Joe played on a rope swing with some of the older kids. The day flew by. "Tomorrow," said Dad, "we'll go for a long hike over the moors." "I can't wait," said Joe. It was getting dark. The family ate sausages and beans, then roasted marshmallows on sticks over a campfire. They drank hot chocolate too. In the darkness, strange rustling noises came from the hedge next to their tent. "What's that noise?" asked Bella. She looked nervous and moved closer to Mum. "Don't worry, it's not a wolf," said Joe teasingly. "How do you know?" "I expect it's just a rabbit, Bella," said Dad. "Or maybe it's just the wind, rustling the leaves." Bella didn't say anything more. Of course she was only little, thought Joe. You couldn't really blame her for having silly worries about wolves. "Time for bed," said Mum. They were all tired after a day outdoors. They put out the fire, closed the tent flap, and crawled into their sleeping bags. Soon Bella, Mum, and Dad yinji. Bella didn't say anything more. Of course she was only little, thought Joe. You couldn't really blame her for having silly worries about wolves. Time for a sleep. Joe was too excited to sleep, so he lay awake thinking about the day and wondering what would happen tomorrow. Suddenly he heard something from outside the tea, something walking around outside, something bigger than a rabbit. What if, thought Joe, Bella was right? What if a wolf did escape from a zoo? This campsite was just the kind of place it might like. Joe lay there, shivering, as the rustling continued. At last, he could bear it no longer. He got up and stuck his head out of the tent. A cow gazed at him over the hedge. She had soft, brown eyes and was chewing some leaves. "Moo," she said. Joe chuckled to himself as he crawled back into his sleeping bag. "To think I was afraid of a cow."
Joe and Bella had always wanted a pet, but their parents always said no. "We're too busy," they said. Pets make too much mess. We've enough to do without a pet as well. Then one day, Bella came home from school very excited. My friend Izzy has got a hamster, she told the rest of the family over tea. She's asked me to go round and play tomorrow so I can meet her. I wish I could have a hamster. Well, you can't, said Mom, passing round spaghetti. No pets here? I'd like a puppy, said Joe. You know we can't have a puppy, said Mom. We're all too busy to take it for walks. Then how about a kitten? Joe asked. No kittens either, said Dad. In fact, no pets at all. The next day, Bella was going to Izzy's house. Joe decided to invite his friend Finn round to play in the garden. He told Finn, "We'll be able to play football for once without Bella getting in the way." But when the boys got home, Joe had a shock. Bella and Izzy were there too. "What are they doing here?" he complained to Mum. "Izzy's mom had an appointment, so she dropped Izzy off here instead," Mum explained. "But Finn and I want the garden to ourselves." "Don't worry about that," said Mum. "Bella's busy." Joe understood when he saw that Izzy had brought something with her, her hamster. "She's called Harriet," Bella told Joe. "Isn't she lovely?" Harriet was small and round with beady eyes, golden fur, and long whiskers. She sat in Bella's hand and snuffled at Joe. Then Bella fed her a lettuce leaf. "Nibble, nibble, nibble," went Harriet, and the leaf disappeared in no time. "She's cute," Joe had to admit. "Look, she's got a ball," Bella said. Izzy showed them a big, see-through ball made of purple plastic. She put Harriet inside. Harriet began to run, and the ball moved across the floor. "You see," Izzy explained, "this way Harriet can run wherever she wants." "Just make sure she doesn't escape," said Mom. "If she did, we'd never catch her. Be careful when you put her back in her cage." Joe and Finn went into the garden to play football. They were practicing penalties when they heard a shout. It was Bella, and it was loud. The two boys ran for the house. "What's the matter?" asked Joe. "Harriet's gone," Bella wailed. "What do you mean, gone?" "We were lifting her out of her ball," said Bella, "and we dropped her." Bella and Izzy began to cry. "Come on," said Joe. "We've got to look for her." They all got down on their hands and knees. Mum came in, and helped too. But Harriet must have been scared of all the noise. "Don't worry," said Mum. "She'll come out when she's hungry." She didn't. When Dad came home, they all searched again, but they couldn't find her. "I'm afraid she's gone under the floorboards," said Dad. "We'll never find her now." For a whole week, there was no sign of Harriet. Then, one night, Joe woke up. "I wonder," he thought, "if I went downstairs now," and was very quiet. He crept downstairs. And there, sitting in the middle of the kitchen floor, calmly nibbling on a breadcrumb, was Harriet. Bella was very happy. And when she told Izzy the news, she was even happier, because Izzy didn't want Harriet back. Izzy had a new hamster. She said that Bella could keep Harriet. "Please, can I?" Bella asked her parents. "I suppose so," said Mum. "But what about me?" demanded Joe. "Why should Bella have a pet and not me?" "I suppose that's true," said Dad, and that's how Joe got a kitten. He called him Casper. One morning, Joe woke up with a sore elbow. He prodded it carefully with one finger. "Ow! That really hurt." Joe climbed out of bed and put on his dressing gown, very, very carefully, so as not to joggle his bad elbow. Then he went downstairs. Mum was in the kitchen, searching for cereal in the cupboard. "We're out of cornflakes again," she said, not looking round. "Mum," Joe began, "I think there's something wrong with my—" But at that moment, Bella came into the kitchen. She was clutching her tummy. "Mum," she cried, "I'm very, very ill indeed. My tummy hurts really, really bad. I am far too sick to go to school." Mum was worried. She felt Bella's forehead. "You do feel hot, but you were fine yesterday." "I'm not fine now," said Bella. "Please, Mum, Can I go back to bed? Bella didn't even want breakfast. Joe tried to tell Mum about his elbow, but Mum was too worried about Bella. Please just get dressed, Joe, or you will be late for school. Mum stayed home to look after Bella. Dad gave Joe a lift to school, and Joe tried to explain about his elbow. I was playing football yesterday and I banged it and it still hurts, he said. Probably just a bruise, said Dad. I hope Bella is better soon. She looked a bit feverish to me. It's always about Bella, thought Joe crossly. At school, Joe had to be very careful of his elbow. He had to keep it really still. Luckily, he could still write with his other hand. At home, Mum was looking after Bella. She put her back to bed and tucked the covers round her. She brought her a glass of water to sip slowly. She stroked her head and read her a story. How do you feel now? She asked. Would you like to try a little breakfast? I can't eat a thing, said Bella. Mum was worried. It wasn't like Bella not to eat anything. She leaned over to pick Bella's teddy bear off the floor. As she did so, she caught sight of something under the bed. A huge pile of sweet wrappers and an empty box. Bella, Mum cried, are those the sweets that Aunt Jackie sent you, and that you were supposed to save for your birthday? Bella turned very red. I woke up early and felt hungry, she said in a small voice. But Bella, said Mum, no wonder you've a bad tummy. You've eaten everyone. An hour later, Mum and Bella were walking into school. Bella's tummy was better, and Mum wanted to get back to work. Mrs. Smales, the head teacher, came running to meet them. Oh, good, you're here, she said. I think you need to go straight to hospital. Hospital, said Mum. She's only eaten too many sweets. I'm not talking about Bella, said Mrs. Smales. I'm talking about Joe. Didn't you notice that he'd broken his elbow? What? Said Mum. At the hospital, Mum and Joe had to sit in the waiting room until Joe could have his X-ray. Why didn't you tell me? Mum said. I did try, said Joe, but you wouldn't listen. Then my teacher noticed I couldn't move my arm.